York County is so much more than just a stop for gas on I-80. 17 County is filled with unique individuals with unique stories just waiting to be told. Welcome to the 17 County Podcast with your host, Emily Perry.
This is 17 County Podcast. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and listen. This helps our podcast grow, and we thank you for your continued support. We would also like to take the time to thank our York County Development Corporation members, Agri-Products, Cornerstone Bank, Nebraska Public Power District, and Central Valley Ag. Without these great members, we wouldn't be able to focus on the growth and development of York County here at the YCDC. So thank you. Let's get to the podcast. So today I have Brian Gralheer with us. He is the new principal at York High School. He has a passion for meeting students where they're at and growing them into successful young adults. Having served in many roles in the education system, Gralheer is coming in with a mission to serve the students, families, and the community of York with his experience, knowledge, and passion for education. So welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Thanks, Emily. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be in York.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take it way back before we get into your current position. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Cumming County. It's northeast Nebraska, town of Wisner. Graduated from Wisner-Pilger. I was raised on a farm, about 8-acre farm with the surrounding area there. And so my dad was a farmer. My mom was a teacher of 36 years. Both of them were graduates of the community and gave back pretty much they just had a servant mindset to the community, always helping out, always being around, and with having 4 kids involved in activities and athletics and church groups and things like that, it was easy to get involved. But I'm kind of in a situation where I've got young kids as well, and I'm ready to start doing some of the same, serve back the community, and just do whatever you can to help out. And that's kind of always been my mindset growing up, is I show up to name an event, and how can I help, and that's kind of the servant mindset I've always had there, and it's been instilled in me. So there's always work to do on a farm, especially around the acreage there. And then obviously, with Mom being a teacher, after school I'd go into the classroom and help Mom with bulletin boards, or help Mom with making copies, or setting up this or setting up that for whatever it may be. So those two, the concept of education and hard work has been ingrained into me. I graduated from Wisner-Pilger and then went to I went on to be play football and went into education at University of Nebraska at Omaha. And I'll be honest, as an 18-year-old kid, I majored in football and then did school as it needed for a little bit there. And then I realized real quick, got to flip that. So buckled down on school. Graduated with a degree in physical education and biology. And while I was at UNO is also when they decided to cut the football program, which is unfortunate. But at the time I was a coach, so trying to find homes for 120 athletes all around the country. And there's a lot of players on there that went on to do great things, but that helped me a lot as a coach, just getting to see that side and go on to eventually be a coach myself. And so once I graduated from University of Nebraska Omaha, I went on and got my first job, DC West, which is just west of Omaha there, just outside of Elkhorn across the river. And I was a high school science teacher. I taught physics, environmental science, physical science, anatomy and physiology, and it was a lot of, I learned the concept of baptism by fire because I also coached football. I coached track. Oh yeah. I coached a little bit of here and there and everywhere. I was kind of a yes man. So the administrator, Jim Knott, he and I had a good relationship, but he would always bring up like, hey, here's something I think would be really good for you as a future administrator. So he was really good in terms of keeping me busy on tasks that would prepare me to become an administrator, which here I am today. But I was there for 5 years. I served as head football coach for 2 of those years. After the second year I stepped away, my oldest son was born, and I decided, I went and coached the junior high program, and that gave me a little bit more time at home, I guess you could say, but also helping kind of the feeder program as well. But I liked the junior high program because you got to have a little bit more effect on molding and teaching the 101 basics of a sport and really the unwritten rules. That was really fun. I really liked kind of molding those younger kids a little bit more. But I was in the high school, and then I was in the the middle school, and so that was a lot of fun there. So I was there for 5 years, and ultimately I went from there across the river. I taught middle school, sixth grade science at Elkhorn Ridge Middle School. It was a bigger school, but then I also got back into high school coaching. I coached for Guy Rosenberg, was the football coach at Elkhorn South, and then I also coached track at Elkhorn South as well. So still got a little bit of coaching there. Ultimately, I moved there. My wife was already there, and so we wanted to be on the same calendar a little bit more, so the days off lined up a little bit better. So that was a great year of teaching. I got a little bit of middle school teaching in, which is way different than high school. I think any teacher will tell you that. It really had me hone in on some of my different classroom strategies that I had, and that was really fun. That was a fun year. And then after that, I got into administration, and I became the AD, assistant principal at Raymond Central, which is about 20 minutes north of Lincoln. So we ended up moving to Lincoln. We moved to Lincoln, and I got started there. And with an AD life is, early mornings, late nights, late night activities, weekends, kind of taken up there. But it did afford us the opportunity for my wife to stay home with the kids and have a little bit more time home there. So that was great. I'm happy that I was able to allow my wife to do that. Yeah. Because I think that development of our children, I think that's invaluable time that my wife gets with kids. So I was really happy about that. My first year as an administrator, March of 2020 hits. That is, I attended a seminar about a year after COVID, and you start to think like there's education pre-COVID and the education post-COVID, and that is it's the single largest paradigm shift in education. Crazy. I don't think that there's anything else, and I'm not going to go into the weeds. I'm going to stay 1,000 feet in the air with the conversation with it, because I could talk for hours on that. But there's so much changes that came from that time frame of COVID in education, and I'm not going to say it's all bad. I think that you'll always read about it, and yes, people died, and that was it was a tragic time frame for all of us, and we're dealing with a lot of the after effects of it. But there was a mindset shift, and it honestly it moved education to a point where it got rid of some of the muck, I guess you could say, and the focused a little bit more in some areas that kind of needed updating. Now, and with that being said, there was a lot of educators that got out of education, which is tragic, and it was tough. But that was a time where, at least where I was, and we focused on staying unified and staying in a common cause and doing everything we can for kids. And that was really cool to see and have those conversations with some of those educators. Now, there was a lot of struggle. There was a lot of failures. There was a lot of turmoil. But quite honestly, like some of the positive in terms of teachers learning how to fail forward was really cool to see. And students, and some students got tougher with it, because adversity has a tendency to really create struggle. Oh yeah. And the struggle, you can go one or two ways with it. You can improve yourself, or you can kind of fall flat on your face. And I think we saw a little bit of both of that as well. But it was like I said, I'm just going to come back and say it's the single most paradigm shift in education. And so the things we've learned from that time frame are still very much in effect today. And so it's crazy to think, but I think that there's going to be an indelible mark from that, year, 2 years of COVID there. But from that point, I was there for 3 years, and then I went to become the high school principal at West Point. And my wife and I were unable to find housing there, which was unfortunate. I loved the job there, but at the same time, an hour and 20 minutes one way just wasn't sustainable with a family. And so I was fortunate enough. I saw the listing of York High School principal come up, put in my stuff, and I had some connections here that I had a lot of conversations of people in the community and just tell me about the job, and they told me their perspective, and I appreciate their perspective, the goods, the bads, the challenges, the things that, but the common theme that I got from everyone that I talked to about the strengths of York is the sense of community.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and so that was really a draw. That was really a draw because I was ready with a wife and my 2 kids. I was ready to settle down, because we'd always had to travel. Even when I was at Raymond Central, it was a 20-minute drive. I was at Elkhorn, it was a 15-minute drive. But I was at DC West, it was a 25-minute drive. Yeah. And I was ready to have a sense of community where I can work in the district or live in the district that I work in. And that was a huge draw to this job is being able to have life slow down a little bit, but still have that upward advancement. And so went through the interview process. Dr. Bartholomew gave me a shot, and here I am trying to give the best shot that I can. And I've been, talking about a fantastic leader. I really respect Mitch. Oh, wow. He's a good one to have. Just some of the conversations, he's always there when I need him, and then he's also, the advice that he gives and the support that he gives, I think is great, and that I can kind of spread that out to the entire administrative team that I'm working with at York Public Schools. Just great everyone's a phone call away, and so just having that team there to be able to lead York Public Schools is great. And I've even had some to kind of spread that out a little bit more. The board there, once again, is reflective upon the support of the York community, and so I'm glad that I'm glad to have that leadership and to be part of that team to be able to lead. So a lot of things I'm learning. Some days it feels like a bit of a fire hose, and I'm just trying to drink as much as I can. But at the same time, that's how I operate, though. Like I try to stay even keel, and I think I do a pretty good job of that, of staying even keel throughout. But it's been a fun year thus far, and I'm excited for the year to continue. So
yeah, absolutely. And I have to ask, you kind of alluded to it, but was administration always the goal? Is that always what you were working towards?
It's funny. I sat in on my first or it wasn't my first interview, but it was the job that I received, and I got the classic question of where do you see yourself 5-10 years from now, or whatever it is, and I remember I remember telling the principal, I want to be in your seat. That's where I remember saying that, and I got some eyebrows raised. But I'm one that's always looking for kind of that next step. With that being said, just bought a house, just moving here. I don't want that to be construed as I'm leaving in a couple of years. Right. That's not my plan, unless Dr. B's got different plans. But I'm always been the one, like, status quo is never good enough. There's always a way to be better. But as it pertains to my family, like, we're ready to settle and kind of be together and not always think that way. But like I'm working on my coursework for to get my superintendent's license right now. I'm going through taking classes through Wayne State, and that's been a real good experience. But yes, administration's always been kind of on that docket for me. I love teaching, and I as I look back, I think of, gosh, my first year of teaching compared to my 6th year of teaching, I was a way better teacher. But that's always kind of been my milieu. Like this is my 5th district that I've been in, and I still have connections with every single one of those people, or every single one of those districts. I know people. I can pick up the phone and call people in each of those districts, and they'll have a conversation, and I'll ask questions. Hey, you've seen this happen. How did you handle that? So building that network is huge, and I've been mobile. Like I said, I'm not necessarily proud of the short time frames that I've been in districts, but I'm proud of the connections and relationships that I've built in each of those places, and there are some. And I can extrapolate this across the state of Nebraska. There are some great teachers out there.
Oh yeah.
Like and it's unfortunate that the news tends to highlight some of the negative sides of that. But I'll tell you the magical, I'll just use the word magical, things going on in the classroom in some places, because there are some fantastic teachers that can literally be the light in kids' lives. And they're all over the place. They're all over the place. I could list 4 or 5 in each district that I've been in. There are some fantastic teachers out there that challenge kids, that get the most out of them. They'll turn a situation where a kid is mad at them and potentially stomps out of the room to that kid is going to be that teacher's biggest advocate. They have a way to take that and take that energy, take that passion. All right, you got that out of your system. Let's get to work and let's move on. And there are just some really, really good teachers at every single district I've been in. And, the research and the data in me tells me that, if I've only been in 5 and we have 200 and some districts, I got to say that there's some good teachers in every district. Yeah. And I've already identified plenty of them here at York. Yeah. And that's just in a short time that I've been here. So I can't say enough good things about what teachers do. And I've always had the mindset that I work for our teachers. I'm here to support them. I'm here to eliminate any hurdle that I possibly can in teaching. It's unfortunate that I think that sometimes lawmakers and legislators they might think they're helping, but they sometimes have an adverse effect. And it's our job as a leadership team as a school district to take what's going on in society and make it manageable for our teachers. Yeah. And there's some years where that's challenging, but it really takes that team mentality, that team mindset, and I think I've noticed, even from an outside perspective, that York Public Schools, the motto of every student every day, find a way. It's popular across the state. Like it's popular in terms of there's people that, that's a really cool motto. They've mentioned that to me because they see it somewhere, maybe on our website, on our buildings, some sort of thing, and that's really, you can tell that YPS really embodies that, because every student does matter. Every student has a story. Every student brings an invisible backpack to school. There might be something going on at home, and we try to meet kids where they're at, and I think that was mentioned there. Meet kids where they're at and take them from where they're at to where they want to be. And that's point A to point B. And some are more challenging than others. I will not lie about that, but that does not change the mission. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I actually am a graduate from York Public Schools.
Nice.
No big deal.
Forever a Duke, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Dr. Bartholomew was our principal.
Oh, of course.
So, yeah, great administration. Of course, when I was there, it was a different role, but he's been phenomenal. He's always one of my favorite people to go to.
I look forward to the off-mic conversation about
the
it.
nice stories.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. We've got plenty of them. But, okay, so we're going to go into some maybe lighter topics.
My name's Don Freeman II. I'm President and CEO of Agri Products in York, Nebraska. We are a manufacturer of quality equipment, grain handling, food storage, food service. And if you ever want to get a hold of us, you can get on our website or you can contact us at 402-362-5500. Thank you.
So,
sure.
Start off with Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Okay. Favorite sport?
Football.
Team?
Packers.
Okay. Gonna get some controversy on that one.
Well, that's okay.
Morning bird or night owl?
I'm a morning bird. I'll try to go to bed as early as I can. Obviously, some of the work that I've done keeps me up late, but 6 o'clock rings, I'm up or getting up. So
not I. I would sleep in every day if I could, if my kids would let me. Yeah. Sweet or sour?
Definitely sweet.
Same. I can agree. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
That was a quick answer.
Yeah. Today, if you show your teacher's badge down at Scooters, you get a free drink. So.
Yeah. My husband teaches out in McCool, and he's like, I have to get up early so I can go. Okay, so moving back into the heavy stuff, kind of break it up a little bit, but you kind of touched on it already. But why York? What drew you to York itself?
Yeah, that community feel was there, and like I said, I made some connections here. I had a lot of conversations with people that were in the school system or in the community, and like I said, that cell of community supports it. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, so much community support there. That was a really big sell to me. You know, my wife, she was raised in Scottsbluff,
okay.
And I'm obviously from Northeast Nebraska, so this becomes a little bit more centered in terms of travel, which is kind of nice. So the Dukes will head out to face the Bearcats here in a couple weeks, and so we'll go out and visit my in-laws, and they're always very hospitable to us. So, but that'll be fun to go out there and see that. So go Dukes in that regard.
Yeah.
I have to get my father-in-law some Duke attire so he can wear to the game, which
Perfect.
He says he's not wearing, but he doesn't know that yet.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I can tell you, like, my kids have made so many connections and friends. Not that they left a lot of friends, and so there was some tears in terms of that. And they had a good situation where they were at, but then coming here and meeting so many friends, it's almost like, you know, it really mends that. And we still try to keep connections with their old friends because we don't want them to lose or forget about them. And we still try to do that. But the new friends that we've made and connections for our kids, it's been great. And so I'm thankful for that, because that was when my wife and I sit down and talk, that was one of the concerns. It's like, how are our kids going to feel moving to a new school and making those new connections, because that's always, you never know until it happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm really thankful for that, you know, and they're kids that we're finding they're going to be able to adjust and figure things out, but you know, as a parent, that's always a concern. But that's been really cool. And New York has a lot to offer for kids. Great parks. We had them playing baseball this summer. We had them playing baseball with their old friends, and then obviously here in York with their new friends. And so there was a lot of travel. I think it worked out. So like Monday, Wednesday, they had games at our old place. And then Tuesday, Thursday, they had games here, and so it was a lot of travel for sure. But looking back, my wife and I both said, well worth it, because making some connections there was really cool. But every time we moved here, we take a load to the storage unit just to get stuff moved, because you know, that's one thing nobody likes doing is moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we got through it, and it's been good. So, but that community of support of York has been really cool to see firsthand.
Yeah,
so.
Whenever people ask me about, I guess, community support in action, quote unquote, well, we have York Fest coming up, which is amazing. If you've never done it, it's so much fun. It is a blast. There's parades and games and carnival, and everybody's there, and it's just it's a really cool environment. But also, home York football games are something else. I don't even know how to explain them, because everybody's there. The atmosphere is so positive, and nostalgically, they're amazing. They are absolutely amazing.
I got my first taste of the student section, managing the student section at the last Friday, and so the Dukes took on Hastings, and that was a really fun game, because it was tight there at the beginning, and the York pulls away and get another Dukes victory. So that was really cool to see, and with the student section there, I'm kind of working with them, and it was whiteout night, so there was baby powder flying through the air, and there were some really cool pictures. You can probably search them on your social media, and you can probably find them, but our student section gets into it, and it's really cool to see the positivity towards our team, because student sections can go one or two ways. They can go negative towards the other team, positive towards our team, and our kids are all about building up the Dukes. We are all about cheering on the Dukes. So that's really cool to see, and I'm thankful for that. And it's good sportsmanship. It's just really cool to see. So and Coach Snodgrass, he's doing a good job with that program. He's got a great history there, and so he's just looking to continually build on that. And we're 2-0 heading into a tough one against Bennington coming this Friday.
Okay.
So
okay, yeah, and Coach Snodgrass once again was there when I was there. Yeah. Great guy. But he really has built it up, and he's just he's amazing. He's really good at making those connections, not just with football players, but with anybody who steps into the weight room or any of his classes. Sure. He's one of those really good teachers that you were talking about.
He's going to squeeze out every ounce of talent or ability from kids, and so he's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk goals, both short-term and long-term for you. What would you say by the end of this school year? What are some of your goals that you're wanting to put in place through the high school? So
a little bit personal, professional. I'm really big on trying to gather names, and obviously we got about 500 kids walking through our halls, so that puts a challenge to me. But I've always had a challenge to myself of knowing every kid's name, and so I've had old yearbooks. I've been looking through pictures, but those are kind of older pictures, and so it's kind of a challenge to be able to do that. But I've already started to gather some names, and bell rings, I try to be out in the hallways, and I'm trying to learn names as I go through, and that's been a as soon as possible sort of thing. I've always kind of said, I've been new multiple times, so I'm getting good at it. Yeah. I try to have that by Christmas. I might not get that this year, but I'm certainly trying. And so gathering those names, making those connections, and then setting up just certain systematic processes to be able to keep teachers in the know. I think that it's important. Communication is an important aspect, especially in my role of making sure teachers are in the know. And I'm trying to establish those lines of communication. And I think I've been, as I reflect and evaluate right now, just in the first couple months on the job, I think I've done a pretty good job of that, at least with my staff. And I think I've had this conversation with Dr. Bartholomew and then other leaders that I've worked with. Establishing the connection with the staff is truly important. I have to get better at probably connecting more with parents, and I try to do that. I have no issue picking up the phone and calling a parent if there's a concern, but also I need to get better at connecting with parents on the great things that their kid is doing, because I think that parent phone call from the school doesn't always have to be negative. I think that too many times it kind of gets that negative persona. Oh, the principal called me, if a kid gets home. And quite honestly, parents need to know of the great thing that's going on in schools. Because I think that every little bit of positivity can help shift that narrative that schools get. Because I think that especially, in the past couple of years, and I hate to bring it up again, but since COVID, schools have kind of been painted in a bad light. And so it creates challenge. It turns, being an educator, being a classroom teacher into a bit of a thankless job. And that's kind of that's a tremendous shift to, the work that they do, those connections and being that rock of support for our kids. That's, I'm going to tell our audience, go out and thank a teacher, because they do a lot. They make connections beyond connections beyond connections. And so in terms of my goals is making sure that I connect with our staff and make sure they're in the know and make sure they have everything they need to do their job well. But I need to get better at probably connecting with parents. The face-to-face communication with students. I want to I think knowing the names creates those positive interactions. More than anything, because there's nothing that can tank an interaction more than, if you've met and had a conversation with somebody multiple times and you don't know their name. That kind of says, well, you don't mean that student believes that I don't mean anything to this person, and that's far from the truth. We got to learn names. And so that's a big thing for me, is learn names and be positive with students. So I know that's kind of a vague and gray goal, but ultimately that's kind of my goal, is to learn as much as I can, and then make sensible change throughout, but then obviously get through that first year in terms of making sure that things are going well and making that subtle, sensible change, and then really focusing on a long-term plan of what does year 2 look like, year 3, year 5, year 10. sort of thing. And so clearing up that and getting clarity is big for me, especially. So that's more short term, but also leading to setting up that vision for long term.
Okay. And I feel like you're in a uniquely difficult position right now, because not only are you trying to connect with these students and parents that have been, and teachers that have been kind of cut off because of COVID for a long time, but you're new to the area, which is also always a hurdle, of course. And I feel like there's just a lot coming at you. So kudos to you. I applaud you. I know that's not easy. But yes, connecting with people and making sure that they have a name and they're seen. I think that's really important for everybody. No matter how old you are, you're seen and you're valued and you're appreciated. So yeah, I agree. I think that will be great. That will be awesome. How about trying to think of how to word it? So I know that you will have a pretty broad array of audience listening to this, because people are very curious, but do you have any parting words of wisdom for people listening? Anything that you want them to keep in mind? I know you already said thank a teacher, but just any parting words of wisdom for anybody listening?
Thank a teacher is a big thing for me, obviously. And I'm kind of uncovering, and as I meet people and make connections, I work hard to gain positive first impressions, because that's a 20-second chance that you never get back, and so being kind, being courteous. And so I also do a lot of listening. I talk to community members, or I talk to parents, or I talk to somebody, and they'll tell me about some sort of event that occurred 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 15 years ago. And it happened, and it's associated with York Public Schools. And I want to really stress to the audience, and sometimes those are great things, and sometimes those are like bad things and bad events. And so that's where, but either way you look at it, and this is kind of alluding to a book that on my long drives that I had last year, one book that I read was called The Power of Moments by the Heath brothers. And so he talked about how there was a chapter on schools, on how we need to focus on creating moments that are prom-like, is what he said. So because you talk to kids and they remember how. So you're a former Duke, forever a Duke, but still you went through 4 years at YHS, and I'm assuming you can. If I ask you, tell me about your favorite moments in high school, you could probably list 8 to 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you could probably, depending on your mindset, mood, whether you had coffee in the morning, you would maybe focus first on the negative things that might have happened in the building, or you might focus on the positive things that might happen on the building. But the thing is, you still have those peak moments, is what they're called, those peak moments, and those determine whether or not you had a good high school career or a bad high school career. And we have graduates. Every school has graduates that if you ask them just a good, bad question, how was your high school career at YHS or at West Point High School, West Point Beamer High School, or wherever it may be, they're going to say good or bad, and then this is why. Okay. Well, my goal is to, on that narrative survey, my goal in that survey is always to have my career there was good, but that is partially. I want to create peak moments to help make that answer be good. And it sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, right. But when you get in the weeds, especially where I'm looking at it in terms of overseeing 500 students, 8-period schedule day with all these teachers and interactions in the hallway, it's hard to manage all of that. And the key there is you can't micromanage all of those things, because there are brush by interactions that could determine a student's day.
Yeah.
They could determine a teacher's day. They could determine my day based on one interaction. But as I kind of go back to what I was talking about here, in the community, I want our community to be open-minded in terms of the positive things going on, because they might not always be aware of those things. There might have been a negative event that occurred 12 years, 2 months ago in that building, okay? But that doesn't define York High School.
Yeah.
there's like, and I can't say this enough, there's great people in York High School. There's great people in York Public Schools trying to do what we can to serve every student every day. And, you know, I think that's going to be my double down on anybody who has anything else to say. That's what we have there. That's what we're about, is making sure that these kids are. But those powerful moments, I've kind of, it's been kind of, I wouldn't say it's my theme, but I've sent out a lot of information on the concept of this powerful moments and how can you create these moments in your classroom, you know, because, you know, for example, I have a few teachers from my high school that, you know, talking about the same thing. I had a physics teacher that I remember so many things in that class. Yeah, and I ended up being a physics teacher myself. Well, correlation. But I had a physics teacher that we had a small class and we had so much fun in that class. And it was just between the projects and the conversations that we had and different things, you know, and that's a big reason is, you know, Miss Cluthy was a great teacher. You know, she's a great teacher and she allowed those conversations and she was student focused. So, and that's what I want our teachers to be about, and that's what they are about. You know, they're about making those connections with kids and making sure that, you know, when that straw poll comes out after graduation, how was your high school experience? It was good. It was great. And this is why, you know. And, you know, in life you don't bat 1,000, but we're going to work our hardest to make sure that these students have a great experience in high school. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That brought to mind, you're like, what are your great moments? And Mr. Hirschfeld is still there. And that man was able to make it so that I came in at like 6:30 every morning to bottle feed a lamb. And I'm not a morning person, keep in mind. So and that's one of the things that made it great. I mean, it was amazing. I had to get up early, but I didn't seem to mind.
Make connections, give students trust, and let them do the things that they love. Give them responsibility to do great things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Learned a lot. I hope everybody that's listening learned as much as I did. If somebody wanted to connect with you, wanted to get in touch, whether it's questions about YPS or you or whatever the case may be, how would they do so?
Culla High School, you can email me. If you go to our website, York Public, and click the York High School tab, you'll be able to, I think that there's a connection bar there where you can email me or even just come into the high school, and we have two great ladies up front that'll be able to get you in touch with me. I may or may not be in my office just because I'm kind of always on the go, but they do have my schedules, and so I'd love to connect with people coming in and just having more questions about the things that we have to offer at YHS, because you know, as I'm learning more and more every day, I know enough already to be able to state that York High School is a special place. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
In closing, we would like to once again take the time to thank our members, the people that help us drive change. We would like to thank York State Bank, Henderson State Bank, York General, Meade Lumber Company Incorporated, and York News Times. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Catch you next time.